I hate to say it, people lie on the internet. Half of internet traffic comes from unidentified, unaccountable bots. We are here to save the internet in the age of AI. We call this approach the deep trust framework. We started, building ZK technology and identity on chain a decade ago. This is a call to action. Every single other use case is blocked by the absence of our infrastructure.
Human versus AI, who wins? Hi, this is Violeta Chekan, or VC. Indeed, I'm a venture capitalist and I have 13 years of experience in venture industry. And this is season 3 of Web2 plus 1 with VC show. And today we have a very interesting guest, Evin McMullen, who is the CEO and co-founder of a new startup, Billions Network, which is actually the leading human and AI verification platform. Welcome, Evin.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here. Really excited to delve into all these topics today.
And just before we go deep to the conversation, I would like to say thank you to our sponsor of this episode, Swissborg. Swissborg has built a complete wealth management platform, and I'm using this to manage my portfolio of digital assets in a very smart way, but also to access early stage investment opportunities. It's very easy to use. It has different solutions like bespoke trading, and also it provides best token exchange rates. And you can start using it today by just downloading the app. You can see the QR code on the screen, but don't forget to put the unique code that I provide, Violeta, as my name, to get the access to 3 months premium account. All the details below. Today we have a very interesting conversation because we have our life online, all right? So it's happening online and we chat online, we're hiring online, we are even voting online, we are consuming information, but who or what is on the other side? Human, bot, or AI agent? And this is very urgent topic and very urgent conversation. I saw your background and I was kind of impressed because you are in identity verification, has been for a while, right? And then Web3 as well. So my first question would be, what did you get as a co-founder and builder in Web3? What did you get wrong and what did you get right when you've been building first version in identity verification?
I love this question because I began exploring and building in Web3 back when we just called it Bitcoin, before Ethereum even existed. And so over the last now more than a decade of working in identity systems, verification, exploring decentralized infrastructure, what I first got wrong was my assumption that decentralized messaging would be mature faster than decentralized finance. And so obviously we have seen the rapid growth of value accrual to protocols, of on-chain transactions and global financial networks skyrocket past the maturity of our ability to determine who or what is on the other side of our interactions online. Exactly as you said. In fact, today, about half of internet traffic comes from unidentified, unaccountable bots. And, as a big fan of bots, an enthusiast of automated non-human actors online, it became really clear to me that in order to scale our experiences of the internet, we also need to scale trust and verifiability.
So that's why you started very recently in February, right? The other startup. So tell a little bit about this and why now? Why exactly now?
Certainly. So in fact, my work in identity verification and verifiable data goes back even before I was working full-time in Web3. I worked with major, corporate entities around the world on both hardware and software for identity in the Web2 space, and realized very quickly that there were a number of security and consent concerns that were not going to scale very well. Many of the traditional identity and verification platforms use centralized databases, don't use zero-knowledge proofs, rather transfer data about users around using a tangle of APIs with varying different levels of security. In fact, I'm willing to bet that most of your listeners have at some point had a brush with an insecure system or even having their data exposed. And unfortunately, that's an experience that now more than 1 billion people worldwide share, having their identity information inappropriately exposed. Quite frankly, it didn't need to be. That was just a technical and architectural decision of the system that they were using. So earlier this year, we launched Billions Network, which is the first universal human and AI network built with mobile first verification. So you can prove who you are, where you're from, how old you are, these traits and capabilities that make you you from the comfort of your own device with no special hardware required in a manner that keeps your sensitive data secure and encrypted and allows you to share proofs like a thumbs up or a thumbs down that you fit certain criteria or that you have certain traits. And so this separates out the need to disclose all of your information to every single application, service, and protocol that you encounter online, while still allowing you to enjoy the personalized internet and all that it can make possible. The reason that right now is the perfect moment is actually a few different dynamics. Firstly, when we started, building ZK technology and identity on chain in earnest now nearly a decade ago, zero knowledge proofs required you to sit at your desktop computer and wait for about 30 minutes, cross your fingers and hope that it would execute correctly. Now, that's not a very scalable way to interact with any app or service. And so now, thanks to the hard work of folks like our team and our research efforts supported by organizations like the Ethereum Foundation, the process of generating one of those zero knowledge proofs takes less than 2 seconds on a mobile device. So firstly, why now is because the technology has matured to a point where we can support Web 2 style, more traditional user experience without the latency and crossing your fingers that early technologies such as this required. Secondly, why now is that we are insiders, not outsiders. Many identity systems, especially in the crypto space, have been built by teams that are either unfamiliar with the regulatory environments and the rules in which they are operating, or are unfamiliar with the design of blockchain and cryptographic systems and the unique identity needs and capabilities that they bring to the table. Fortunately, our team has both. So we've spent many, many years advising and working hand in hand with government entities, not only to educate them about these capabilities, but also to help pilot them, such as our work with the European Commission in the blockchain sandbox, demonstrating age-based access control for websites and applications that allows for the preservation of user privacy. Additionally, some of my co-founders are also the co-founders of projects like the Polygon blockchain. So our awareness of how to build a protocol ecosystem and how to scale it globally, I think eclipses just about any other folks out there. And then thirdly, in terms of, ecosystem maturity, we had not yet, about a decade ago, had not yet developed many of the primitives, many of the interaction types that require verifiable data and identity. But today, if we want to do more than just allocate a treasury, just more than send around tokens or do under collateralized lending, every single other use case is blocked by the absence of our infrastructure. So if you and I want to schedule a call, we want to plan a meeting, we want to build a product, we need to know more about one another. Who do you represent? What skills do you have? Where are you from? And what time is your calendar free? And so being able to interact using more than just our token balances as the way we introduce ourselves, that is what brings us to this perfect moment right now.
You mentioned that you're mobile first. So that's kind of, so can I just be as a user, go to the Apple store or so how does it work? So can I just use it, or should I have any knowledge to use that, because you say about zero knowledge proof, so the regular user would not understand that. How does it work?
So first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I know that, the scale of our operations in only a few short months to some people seems eye-watering, nearly impossible. It is wholly attributed to many, many years of hard work from our teammates and waiting for the appropriate moment to really scale adoption. Now, in terms of how the technology works, I know we got into a little bit of the details under the hood when we were talking about how we got to now. But if you and I think about the conversation that we are having in this very moment, we have not discussed TCP/IP or HTTPS or any of the internet protocols that are making this chat right here possible. And that's how I think about identity protocols and privacy preservation technologies. We should not have to talk about them. We should not have to understand all of their intricacies in order to enjoy their benefits. However, I think it's very important that if we choose to investigate more, if we desire to review the documentation to better understand the stack, that information is readily available for those who elect to do so. But for everyone sitting at home, for folks who are thinking about building with our stack or just want to be able to, enjoy the next steps of the internet in a more secure manner, exactly as you noted, our applications are available in the Android store and Apple App Store for mobile devices worldwide right now. And the way that experience works is very similar to a standard app that you might already have on your phone. You can download the native application, immediately get started using an email address. So it doesn't require any specific crypto knowledge in order to get up and running. Then you're able to use the existing hardware of your device that you already have in your pocket to prove things like the fact that you are a live human being, just popping open the camera and smiling for it. And then what we are able to do on the back end is essentially determine that input from the camera is coming from a live human being and that human being is unique, that you and I are different people without exposing any of the sensitive personal information that makes us us. One other really unique capability that we've brought to market through this native application is that we have integrated with more than 100 different government ID systems. And so what this allows us to do is take, for example, your passport. It might have an NFC chip in it, a near field communications chip in it, and you can simply tap that chip, tap your passport document to your phone, and we are able to pull the data out of that NFC chip, verify that data was signed by the government, signed by the issuing entity, and hasn't been tampered with, and then use that as the basis to prove your identity. Keeping all of the data from your passport safely on your device and only generating these zero knowledge proofs, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, to prove, for example, that you're over the age of 18, and then sharing that proof with another application or website. And so in this way, we are very different than the approach of many of our peers in the ecosystem. We don't require any special or proprietary hardware. You can just bring the devices that you already use every day where you're already comfortable. We actually don't even require the download of an application at all because our SDK can be easily integrated into existing websites and existing apps where you already spend time. And so some of your viewers and listeners may have already interacted with the Billions Network if they've participated in some recent airdrops and value distribution on chain. We're also pretty different.
That's actually fantastic.
Please,
yeah, because I just actually was using I had to pass the KYC, and I had to download another application to make the whole verification. Yeah, and it's such a disturbance in the process because it takes time. And what you said, that it's you don't even notice, and it's kind of like Web 2 experience, and you don't notice that what you're interacting with. I think it's very, very important.
We recognize that flexibility is really important. There are different experiences that different projects want to pursue. And so that's why we have both the embedded experience as well as a separate native application.
Oh, fantastic. And how the non-biometrical approach is different from biometric data? Because there are several identity verification that use biometric data. So how are you different? Is it important to have biometric data? What's your opinion?
So here you can see my screen, and let's get into a little bit more detail around the differences between methods of identifying a unique person in a set. I've borrowed this graphic from Vitalik Buterin. However, we've improved it a little bit to include accurate data about Billions Network tech stack and the way that we approach uniqueness. So there are a few different methods of identifying a unique human in a set. First, you can use soft tissue biometrics alone but that can be really invasive, especially if you store that data in a centralized manner with permissioned accounts, as some of our competitors do. It also becomes really difficult if you require proprietary hardware, because then you're limited in terms of onboarding and access to only those folks who are willing to interact with your closed source hardware or even physically able to access it. Sort of secondly, you can identify a unique person in a set using a list, such as government IDs. And then thirdly, there's this concept of the web of trust. So attestations and information from multiple counterparties that get combined together in order to identify that one person is different than another, that their data footprint and their traits and capabilities are sufficiently dissimilar from other individuals in that group. At Billions, we combine a number of these capabilities to what we think is the most scalable, accessible, and secure solution. So we rely on the hardware you already have in your pocket. So sort of general hardware. We do not include super invasive biometrics in a manner that is going to be in violation of the law. So for example, we do not take super invasive biometrics and enable them to create permissioned accounts on a server that only we control. Rather, we enable the integration with government systems such as the passports we were talking about earlier. We've also integrated Aadhaar, which is the national identity system in India, alongside some of our government partners there, and are in the process of integrating many others. And so what this allows us to do is basically combine multiple sources of data to prove your uniqueness depending on the requirements or the acceptance criteria of the application that you're using. So for example, some apps are just interested in understanding that you are a live human being. They don't need to know that you're unique, that you're over a certain age, or that you come from a certain country. Whereas others have a much more restrictive set of requirements and need to know more information about their users for compliance or for optimizing value distribution. And so we have a very flexible, open framework that allows both users to sit in the driver's seat and decide how much they are comfortable sharing, but also allows applications to not have to ask for more than they need and not put them in the dangerous position where they are collecting and storing a lot of different data types that they actually never were designed to store. And so we've actually seen that this is really desirable for small and medium-sized businesses that operate in regions that have data privacy and protection laws. For example, Goop is a company that was started by Gwyneth Paltrow, if you're familiar with her, here down the street from me in Los Angeles. Her CTO is an old friend and colleague of mine, and they shared with me, in fact, that because of the local data privacy and protection laws here in California, they've had to introduce some new processes in their business. Some sort of different ways of managing data that they never intended as an e-commerce and lifestyle brand. And so that's actually been really burdensome for businesses like theirs that were optimized to serve their customers in a specific way. And certainly we're not built to be complex data management systems with the ability to, trace the utilization of data in and out, especially with incorporating more sophisticated tools that utilize AI. And so we see this not only as a solution that provides better security and assurances for app and service developers and their users, but also takes the headache out of age verification, out of identity verification in a manner that's not going to add crazy burdens to these businesses who didn't get started with their work so that they could become a server farm.
So I know that you have partnered with Deutsche Bank, you have long collaborations with different banks, and you also made the partnership with Sentient. That is all cool, but what is one use case or maybe one sector that you see like the biggest potential?
When we look around the world, there are governments of all shapes and sizes that are modernizing their citizen identity tools. This can look like places like the United Arab Emirates, where UAE Pass, or their national identity system, can allow you to prove that you are a citizen to different applications. In fact, they even have a special dongle, physical thing you can clip into your computer where you can insert your card into a physical card reader and enter gated websites. This might sound a little familiar to some of your users from the 90s because this is how Britney Spears managed her hardware gated website back in the early 90s. But, what is old is new again, and using identity, using physical access control, and bringing that to the personalized internet is still in its early infancy. Now, one of the challenges with the absence of clear standards for how to manage the interaction between secure government identities and the open web is that we've seen, unfortunately, a number of mistakes made along the way. So, for instance, in India, more than 1 billion citizens had their private data exposed inappropriately due to an insecure method of being able to manage that government ID database. And so I think one of the largest opportunity spaces that we have now is to improve the security and accessibility of the identity forms we already know and love and use every single day, and their ability to govern and protect and personalize our experiences on the open web and even in blockchain ecosystems. And so that's why, in addition to our work supporting projects in the Web3 space, projects in the AI space, we are also working very closely with a number of government entities to bring those capabilities to blockchains, to AI environments in a manner that's going to be secure and consistent with the origin of that data.
You mentioned government, and have you seen this news that the British Member of Parliament right now has created his clone, an AI clone, and now the AI clone will be working with those who vote and, the citizens and members. So how do we actually prove the uniqueness of those AI? I don't know how to call it. Like, is it AI clone? Is it because so how do we prove this? How do we prove that this is exactly him who was created? How do we prove that this is not someone that just sitting in India or in Pakistan and making the malicious attack on the governments and just making a clone of the same AI network? So how do we prove this?
This is a great question. I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure your listeners are aware that sometimes people lie on the internet. And in a world of generative AI with, an infinite non-deterministic set of outcomes, that possibility will increase significantly. So how can I tell that my agent is really talking to your agent? How can I tell that an AI-enabled experience that's supposed to represent the government or a specific member of government is indeed representing that individual or that group? And so I am pleased to share that we have the answer from a technical perspective.
Wow.
We call this approach the deep trust framework. So deep trust is a method that allows you to assign a unique identity to an instance of an AI agent and relate it back to yourself or to a group that you are part of, such as a government organization or a business. So, of course, if we want to identify agents, we need to identify the individuals or groups to which they are accountable. And accountability requires identity. So with deep trust, not only do we piggyback on or build on top of the human identification capabilities that we make possible, but we extend those to AI agents as well. We utilize what is called a trust registry. You can think of this as kind of like the agent phone book, being able to determine whether an agent is associated with a given party, and being able to use math, to be able to use zero knowledge proofs, to be able to technically determine, not just trust with your eyes, but actually mathematically discern that an individual or organization is in control of an agent, or that agent is accountable to them. What I think is a very interesting sector that a lot of people may overlook or think is a little boring, and that's the insurance and reinsurance space. So before I was working full-time in crypto, I worked at a company called Berkshire Hathaway here in the United States that's known for its insurance and reinsurance portfolio. And one of the areas where it became really clear that there was going to be rapid development is in the space of business insurance, being able to protect your business against outcomes that may be undesirable to what you had planned. One example of a really challenging business interaction with AI that we saw recently is that a Canadian airline integrated a ChatGPT wrapper, like a little chat bot, into its support function. And when travelers communicated with that chat interface, they were actually given ticket prices that didn't exist. That agent was just making up airplane tickets. But because that interaction happened on the airline's website, complete with their logo and all of their associated information, when that case went to court, the airline was actually found culpable. They were responsible for the unexpected outputs that AI-enabled experience facilitated. And right now, there is no standard insurance product that a business can buy to protect themselves from, unexpected outcomes that are enabled by these workflows, in part because there is no standard way to identify that instance of an agent and to bound its outputs in a manner that's accountable back to a specific counterparty. So whether it's for insurance or for something everyday, even like payments, where we want to enable agents to pay on our behalf or to pay one another, we cannot facilitate a system of payments if we do not know who those payments are going to. And so that's why we're particularly excited about the way that deep trust has been embraced thus far. We've actually been called in by the European Commission over in the EU to enable this as the first verification methodology for instances of agents in a business context, as well as a bunch of interest from many of our colleagues, both in enterprise and in government. So we're pleased to see that we are not the only ones thinking not only about KYC, but also what we call KYA, or know your agent.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's really cool. And my next question is, you talk about a lot about the government, so integration with government, but who actually will own the identity in the next 5 years, and who should? Is it government? Is it like wallets? Is it chains? So who should be the owner of the identity?
The atomic unit of Web3 is a human being, a human user. And
but what so about AI?
AI is deployed by human beings. Agents are created by human beings somewhere back in the supply chain. Any trustless or trust minimized system relies on an intense amount of trust in the operators of the nodes of that network. We may talk about decentralization all day in many different forms, but upgrades are centralized. Paying for utility bills that power the machines that enable our network, that's a centralized act. And so depending on how far we go up that supply chain of capabilities, we always end up with a group of human beings who are abiding by shared sets of agreements. And those individuals are infinite machines of production of their own identities. I like to say that in some ways, identity is a verb, that is an action that we are constantly co-creating with the environments around us based on how we speak to each other, how we engage and transact with one another. And so necessarily, we will always be the source of energy, the source of entropy, the source of data for our own identities. That is sort of how we've approached the architecture of the Billions Network as well, is that it is based around not a specific account, not an outside entity, not a third party, but rather around you in the driver's seat for your own identity. Which seems like a pretty basic thing to say, but from a technical perspective is a pretty radical view in our industry. So we think about governments and enterprises as supplying identifiers. They give us passport numbers. They give us driver's license numbers. We rent email addresses from them. But if you lose the password to your email, you do not cease to be yourself. That's why we think combining multiple sets of data, multiple identifiers or names or numbers by which you are known to other parties around your consent and control, that is the most scalable, the most recoverable, the most interoperable method to approach identity.
But imagine if we don't solve the identity problem for AI. What do you think that can get really wrong? Is it like we will have control from the scammers? We will have more fraud? We will have bots controlling identity? what do you think like the biggest risk we can have?
So the mission of the Billions Network is that we are here to save the internet in the age of AI. In the absence of completing that mission or working earnestly with our partners toward it, we will cease to be able to enjoy value from connected spaces. We will have to approach every interaction as adversarial. The intellectual labor of mistrusting our own senses, our eyes, our ears, what we see and hear with every connected experience will become exhausting for human beings. Imagine if when you open up your computer, you open up your phone, you even walk into physical spaces, imagine not being able to trust your eyes ever again. Not being able to determine whether the next step you take with your foot is going to lead you through the floor to the next layer underneath, and you're going to topple over, or you'll be able to take a steady step one after another like you can today. Removing the innate human capabilities that we have to sense our environment and to facilitate interaction will destroy the internet as we know it, making it an unsafe place for payments, for communication, even for connection. And we're already seeing that today. In fact, one of my co-founders, Sandeep Nailwal, who's one of the co-founders of Polygon, has had bad actors out there create deep fakes of him and join Google Meet calls pretending to be him. And so is actually born out of that very scary reality that's already happening right now, that some of the very cool capabilities and superpowers on our roadmap were born as a result to fix that problem. So I think, unfortunately, we are already seeing the harms to our experience and to our open internet today. But we have plenty of math and plenty of solutions to bring to this challenge. Now it's just a question of scale and excellence in design.
I love how you said that about the mission of Billions Network. What is one metric that would define you? Okay, we accomplished this. We did it. This is our value add.
I think that if we look at the global financial system, and more than 80% of financial transactions are executed by non-human actors on both sides, we will have done our job, because that means we have enabled a global system where not only human beings, but their delegates, their non-human delegates, can interact in a trustful manner with some of the most, valuable and trust-intensive engagements that two counterparties can have, such as the exchange of financial value.
Wow, I like your answer, actually, and I like your non-hesitate. Like, you didn't hesitate to even to answer this. This is very, very curious. So that's very awesome. We already touched point a little bit of your roadmap, but what is the next for Billions Network? Tell me a little bit, maybe from the technical perspective, maybe from the user's perspective as well. So what should we expect?
So the first phase of the Billions Network is what we call the Human and AI Network, setting up the foundations to be able to identify and verify traits and uniqueness of instances of agents and the human beings for whom they serve. So the next step is going to be the reputation layer, enabling the accrual of multiple identifiers, multiple sets of data and context, and reusing that data over and over again. I'm willing to bet that you've done a number of actions today that only you could do, only a human could do. And so the fact that any new app or service you're interacting with is going to ask you to reintroduce yourself again, that seems like extra effort, extra data, extra opportunity, potentially to even have a typo or make a mistake that leads to you having to spend more time and effort. And so what we can look forward to in the coming years is that scaling from just the human and AI internet into this reputation layer. What this means from a product perspective for builders and for individuals who are just exploring themselves is a few new consumer-facing products that will allow us to bring our identity into the familiar social and interactive spaces where we already spend time. From a founder perspective, let's say in more of the crypto space, if you are planning to launch a token, you are planning to do volume-based incentives, you would like to have personalized or age-gated experiences for your users, the set of tools that we have will become even faster and even easier. So we can take the guesswork out of that access control for your team, and you can focus on the primary objective of serving your audience and enabling those capabilities instead of worrying about a tangle of user data on the back end. So really excited to continue to build toward even better developer experiences, making this really quick and easy for builders so that they can focus on their main mission. For individuals like you and me and my mom and my neighbors, being able to bring this technology out of the white paper and into lived experience, into the applications and services where we already spend time.
Okay, so I have very few questions left. So within this Web3, so as an investor, I see a lot of identity verification startups. So tell me just one feature, something that you got right and the others didn't. One thing.
So I think our team has led the way with client-side proving. And we can tell that from basic data. More than 9,000 projects worldwide are built on top of our capabilities. We are the stewards of the most broadly used zero-knowledge libraries on Earth. Just about every student in a university anywhere who is learning about this subject matter is going to start with the work that our team has stewarded and has brought to scale. And so I think part of the choice that we got right there was making, many of these resources open source so that we could proliferate these tools as broadly as possible and help to move this ecosystem forward in its maturity and development faster than any other project ever has.
I love how you said team and that execution, and you focused on your actions as a team. Because you know what, as an investor, people ask me like, how do you invest? What is the most important thing in a startup? And I always say team and execution. And execution that is completely depends on the team. So it's a great answer. And I will go to the next segment. It's called If I Had to Start Over. And I usually ask people if they start over right now, a startup. I would love to twist a little bit this and to put you in my shoes, being an investor. So imagine if you had to start over, but as an investor. So you cannot choose identity verification sector, so you cannot invest in this sector. So anything else. So what idea would you invest if you had, maybe you have even some startup in mind that you would, I don't know, like say kudos. So you would invest in them. And what valuation also would you consider to invest? What stage would you consider to invest in them?
So I have had the great privilege of putting on a very small investor hat in another part of my life as the co-founder of Dow Jones, which is an investment DAO that brings together builders and founders in the crypto space with DJs who are touring artists.
Wow.
So DJs and DGens together. Yeah, a pretty amazing group of folks. And so I would definitely maintain my thesis from Dow Jones, focusing on early stage projects and supporting founders, not because of the deep maturity of their ideas, but rather the conviction we have in them as builders. We supported a number of projects and their founders even before they had quit their full-time jobs to start building, their main squeeze initiatives, many of which have now become some of the most prominent and large-scale projects in our industry. So if I were to choose a discipline, I don't have a plan B project because there is no plan B. We will rest when the problem is solved. When it comes to, I guess my only plan B is Billions. B is for Billions Network, and that's about it. Sometimes people ask me, what are you going to do next? And, I get confused. What do you mean next? There is one mission. But anyway, if I were as an investor to choose, a specific vertical to focus on, I would choose robotics. I am a hardware girly at heart. I think that much of what we do from the protocol and network design perspective is just a race to the hardware anyway. And so I would think about the physical aspects of personalization, of leveraging the data that we spent all day talking about. And then if I had to add a cherry on top, I would think about CapEx infra and the energy supply chain. So going a few steps down the stack from what we talked about today, from the data to the infrastructure down to that hardware and the energy that powers it.
Wow, a very interesting twist, actually. I like it. I like it. And how would you choose? So you've been an investor. So what would be your criteria? So what would you be focusing on?
So I definitely think the three T's are always a safe bet as a place to start. Team, TAM, time. Why these individuals? What is their unfair advantage? Um, why this market? Why this audience? What is the unfair advantage they bring to the switching costs that will be required to adopt this new solution? And why right now?
Oh, so we're actually thinking very similar. Yeah. So I always like, why you and why now? So that's like my two questions to the all the teams. But you also add the market that is like a little bit like 3T. Wow, that's very curious. Okay, so my last question is more. Yeah, we touched point a little bit that we are heading to this future where it's like yeah, many things will be managed by AI. So human versus AI, who wins? And how crucial we would be actually the identity verification for human beings, or we are moving to the future of more identity verifications of AI agents that are being created and work for humans.
The quality of AI agent identification relies on the quality of human identification behind it. We cannot govern what agents do unless we can govern the way in which they are brought into being by developers, by organizations that are building them. I think if you pose it as human versus AI, who wins? Who wins is going to be determined by how skilled those humans were bringing that AI workflow into being. It is entirely imperative, upon the developers of these systems to ask these questions before we get to a point of relying on code quality control to separate us from a nightmare outcome online. The strongest indicator we have of the success of the agentic future is the quality of human identification in digital space. I think this is a call to action for builders everywhere to think about the supply chain of information that comes from not only the origin of their data and what they're creating, but also the eventual consumption of that information, the way it will inform AI workflows in the future. So if this is interesting to you, if you are ready to rise to the challenge and come join us to save the internet in the age of AI, I definitely encourage everyone to come check out our work at billions.network. Can either as a user explore the app store, in your country and download our native app to get started, or as a developer, a builder, a creator, we always have our DMs open and would love to support you, whether it's helping you filter out bots and sybils to make sure incentives get to the right place, or even operating at a much larger scale with things like regulated and compliant data. I think we are at a really exciting time in this market development, but the success and progress that we make is going to be a function of how we work together. So this is an open invitation for all of your listeners to come join us on that mission.
Oh, thank you so much. That is fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much, Evin. And I will put all the links below, so everyone can check also and follow you as well. And yeah, just send the DM and yeah, check out Billions Network in your country. Download the app. Try to play with this. Yeah, thank you so much. And just before we end, I would like also to say one of the biggest thank you to our sponsors, Swissborg. So if you want to manage your crypto portfolio in a smart way, this is the solution for you. Also check the links below. Thank you very much. And I'm super excited for this interview. And yeah, so please also subscribe, like, comment. And also if you use Billions Network, so also leave the feedback below as well. We would love to hear also your experience, and see you next time.